I just want to talk a little bit about the Olympic trans fiasco that we've all witnessed past 24 hours or so. A female boxer got hit by a trans boxer from another country, threw in the towel just about immediately. I mean, right after the hit. Everybody's outraged that trans boxer is allowed to compete as a female. In my opinion, outrage over this is misdirected. And this perspective from where they're outraged, that is likely non-recoverable. In other words, the idea that people are okay with women getting into the ring and beating each other up, they're already okay with that. There's no going back. You try to explain to people in the 50s that women would be boxing each other in the Olympics and they would look at you like you're crazy. But here we are. You go girl, feminism, whatever, everything's just fine. Now, boxing is a man's game. It's very rough even for guys. They go through concussions, they go through major injuries. It's serious shit. And you combine that with wokeness and women in boxing, and the situation we just witnessed was going to happen inevitably. So I think we can expect more of this. There'll be no correction. There definitely won't be a correction with the idea that women shouldn't be in the boxing ring. Oh no, you go, mixed martial arts, whoever else. Yeah, that's great. Women getting bloody, good, beat each other up. Anyway, here's the perspective from the Daily Mail. You can see that's the Italian boxer on the right, and this is the allegedly male boxer from Algeria.
We have some quick replays of the very short-lived action.
One hitting the cash register, and
in the women's welterweight.
Right after that, she bailed. Her neck snaps pretty hard right there. And that was it. So, female boxer yells, "This is unjust," falls to her knees in tears as she quits the fight against the, quote, biologically male opponent. 46 seconds into it, yes, it's awful. Yeah, it sucks getting hit in the face. You can see he's got a pretty good reach. You know, he's obviously much more muscular. He, she, whatever. And I say whatever because there's some discussion as to whether this is an actual trans person or some woman who was born with an incredibly high amount of testosterone. Don't know yet, jury's still out. But look, as long as the woke people consider this a woman, you can expect to see more of this. I mean, yeah, if she is a woman, she's pretty powerful. And it's surprising to me they're in the same weight class, but she made weight. She made weight. You got the Italian girl here, the Algerian here, some long arms. That's a major advantage in a boxing match. But going back to the whole question of what it means when women jump into the ring, you know, maybe you're a guy who's got a daughter and you don't have any sons. You think, oh, yeah, that's cool, man. I'm going to teach her to be just like a guy. You're raising a defective guy when you do that. She'll never be a guy. And you might wind up damaging her in the first place. This is an example of a woman who, at the time, was a single mom. I don't know if she was divorced or however the circumstances were, but she got depressed. Before she decided to kill herself, she killed her daughter. And I found out this person was a Army veteran, a boxer in the Army, actually. And she was 42 years old, long since out of the Army, had a 7-year-old daughter, decided to kill her, and then kill herself. So whatever it was that was bothering you, nothing justifies doing this. I have no sympathy for the woman and nothing but sympathy for the poor little girl. You can read about this if you want to, but it was just depressing. And it made me think, did all that time as an all-Army boxer maybe lead her to this state of mind? I don't know. I'm no doctor. I'm not a researcher. But there's been some research done on this. And I know this is NPR, not exactly an unimpeachable authority, but female athletes are closing the gender gap when it comes to concussions. Maybe that's what it's going to take, is NPR to jump in there and say, oh, it's an injustice, whatever, we need to study this. Well, that'd be a start. Because when you take those kinds of smaller framed, less bone density people and you put them in this kind of abuse, they can't recover the way a guy does. You don't need to be a doctor to understand basic physics. She beat the crap out of me. This isn't the same person. This is a different mixed martial artist. Like, she didn't knock me out, didn't finish me, but just knocked me around for 3 rounds. And I remember later that night, it was very nauseated, and she was throwing up, and that's classic signs of a concussion. Your brain bounces around in there, and you're not doing yourself any favors. And here she is training, this time she's sparring with a guy, so she's, dressed up like a tapestry with all the tattoos, and you got the purple hair, and I don't know what went on earlier in her life to send her on this path, but her body is going to suffer much later. I hope she doesn't turn into the other example I showed you, but this is not human, and we're not living in a human world anymore. The person I mentioned before, all-Army boxing champion, all-Armed Forces boxing champion 3 years in a row, also says she retired after 11 years of service. So you don't retire after 11 years in the Army. You can get medicaled out. You can be medically retired in that sense. That may be what happened. I don't know. But she kept on doing with the boxing coaching, and she was in a dojo and loved her dojo, loved her instructors, very passionate about her classes. That's great. But if there's something wrong, if your personality changes after brain injury, like it sounds like it could happen, your brain rattling around your skull, maybe you look into this. Maybe you don't do things like that when you've got the responsibility to raise a daughter. I don't know. Can anybody tell a girl, oh no, you can't tell me, and yada yada, whatever. It's just the evidence is rolling in. It's just a list of the symptoms you can get. It's a list as long as my arm from the concussion, and some of these things might be longer lasting. One of the things that stands out to me is your brain has dysregulated neurovascular coupling. That means some regions of your brain are hypoactive, not doing their fair share. Other areas in your brain might work overtime in an attempt to make up the difference. So it's easy to get overstimulated, sensory inputs, cognitive inputs, conversations, readings, works. It's overstimulating that can be the culprit behind emotional symptoms. So anger and irritability after a concussion. I mean, they need to look into this some more, but I think when they do, they're going to find things they don't really want to find out. They don't want to find out that women aren't supposed to be doing guy stuff like beating each other up. It's bad enough when the guys do it. When I was in the Army, I got injured one time. I needed some physical therapy. I went to the physical therapy place, and it was full of women who had destroyed their ACLs just doing basic team sports. It wasn't even Army training. It was physical fitness training in the morning, just like playing a game of soccer. Really easy way to wreck your ACL, especially if you're a female, and especially if you've only been doing physical activity for your first couple of years in the Army. Well, the place is full of it. It took them a lot longer to recover. I didn't see any head injuries in there. I didn't dig into it much, but it stood out to me. The cost and the recovery time was much, much greater. So when it comes to head injuries, I don't see how that could be much different. Some parts of the brain, such as the hippocampus, don't receive enough oxygen to complete a particular task, such as forming long-term memory or knowing how to behave in a social situation. Other parts may try to compensate. It's often not very effective. Neurovascular coupling dysfunction. That could be what went on there. I don't know. But getting back to my original point, I think the whole idea that we have gotten to the state of acceptance of the idea of women competing in combat sports, especially at a time we can't even find enough men to be actual combatants or combatant trainees, this says something. It says something, and it doesn't say something very positive. Anyway, I might catch a lot of flack for this, but love to hear your comments. Thanks.